I used to believe that corporate buildings were designed to keep secrets. The one I worked in certainly was. 42 floors of tinted glass and brushed steel, belonging to one of the biggest tech corporations in the country. From the outside, it looked like ambition. From the inside, it felt like strategy. My name is Ethan. I was a senior project manager, which meant I lived in conference rooms and survived on coffee. The company was preparing to launch a revolutionary AI platform, and whoever led the final phase would likely become the next director. That position meant power, money, and a seat at the executive table. It also meant competition. There were 3 of us in the running. First, there was Ryan. Sharp suits, sharper smile. He had a talent for aligning himself with whoever currently held influence. People underestimated him because he joked often and stayed relaxed, but I had watched him dismantle a rival's proposal with a single well-timed email. Then there was Claire. Claire had transferred from our Chicago office 6 months earlier. She was methodical, composed, and devastatingly intelligent. Where Ryan played chess in public, Claire played it in silence. I admired her long before I admitted it to myself. And that was my first mistake. The project started consuming all of us. Late nights, dim conference rooms glowing with slides and projections. Claire and I often stayed past midnight, refining algorithms and preparing strategy decks. There was something electric in those quiet hours, just the hum of servers and the city lights flickering below. I told myself it was professional chemistry. One night, as I walked back to my desk, I noticed Ryan standing by the executive corridor. He wasn't supposed to have access to that wing. The glass door closed behind him before I could be certain. The next morning, our department head announced a restructuring of leadership responsibilities. Ryan would now support executive alignment for the AI launch, an ambiguous role that placed him dangerously close to decision makers. He caught my eye across the room and gave me a friendly nod. That was when I realized the race wasn't as straightforward as I thought. Claire began acting distant after that. She declined our usual late-night sessions and insisted on working from home more often. I told myself she was just stressed. Still, the silence felt deliberate. One evening I stayed late, alone. As I prepared to leave, I saw a folder left open in the printer tray. It contained an internal memo recommending Claire for director, signed by our department head. But what stopped me wasn't her name. It was the date. The memo had been drafted weeks ago, before the competition had officially begun. Before I had even known there was a position to compete for. I stood there, holding the paper, feeling the floor tilt beneath me. Had this all been predetermined? Were Ryan and I simply there to create the illusion of a fair selection? I didn't confront Claire. Instead, I watched, and what I saw unsettled me further. 2 days later, I noticed her leaving the building with Ryan. Not hurried, not secretive, casual, familiar. That night I barely slept. The board presentation arrived sooner than expected. All 3 of us were to present our strategic vision. The auditorium was packed with executives. The air felt heavy with expectation. Ryan went first. Smooth, charismatic. He presented a vision centered around aggressive expansion and bold marketing. The room responded with interest. Then Claire. Her presentation was meticulous and precise. She anticipated risks before they were mentioned. She referenced data only a handful of people had access to. As she spoke, I realized something chilling. Parts of her framework resembled drafts I had shared with her weeks earlier during our late-night sessions. Not identical, but close enough. When my turn came, I adjusted on instinct. Instead of delivering the slides I had prepared, I shifted focus entirely. I spoke about long-term stability, ethical AI governance, internal transparency. I addressed the unspoken tension about leadership favoritism, carefully but clearly. The room grew quiet. After the presentations, We were dismissed. That evening, I received a call from our department head, asking me to come to his office. He closed the door behind me. "You weren't supposed to know," he said. I didn't ask what he meant. He admitted that Claire had indeed been recommended early on. The board wanted someone reliable, predictable. The competition was partially a formality. But my presentation had complicated things. Apparently, several board members were concerned about the perception of internal favoritism. They needed someone who appeared independent, someone who had not been quietly positioned from the start. Someone like me. I left his office stunned. But the final revelation came the next day. Claire asked to meet. We sat in a quiet lounge overlooking the city. She didn't look composed this time. She looked tired. She confessed that she had known about the early recommendation. She had felt pressured to maintain an advantage. Ryan had discovered it too, and had approached her with an offer. They would share information, subtly weaken my position, and ensure one of them secured the role. Later, they would negotiate influence. What she hadn't expected was that Ryan had also been feeding concerns about her lack of collaborative spirit to the executives. He had been preparing to undermine her once she no longer needed him. She realized it only days before the presentation. The distance, the secrecy, it wasn't just strategy. It was regret. Ryan had been playing both of us from the beginning. A week later, the decision was announced. I was appointed director. Ryan was transferred to a regional branch office. Technically a promotion, but far from headquarters. Claire remained, reporting directly to me. The first few weeks were awkward. Power shifts always are. One evening, as I stood alone in my new office, staring at the skyline, I understood something I hadn't before. The competition hadn't been about intelligence. It had been about character. Ryan relied on maneuvering. Claire relied on positioning. I had nearly relied on resentment. In the end, what changed everything wasn't strategy. It was choosing integrity when I realized the game was flawed. Claire and I rebuilt our professional relationship slowly, cautiously. Trust doesn't return overnight, but it returns stronger when it is earned rather than assumed. Corporate buildings do keep secrets, but they also reveal people. Ambition exposes cracks, pressure reveals priorities, and relationships, whether built on trust or convenience, always surface under strain. The moral: in environments driven by power and competition, strategy may win moments, but integrity wins futures.